that's the thing. But, shit. I was thinking about some other stuff. It's not how it really was supposed to be. It was actually supposed to have this on top of it. What was that? And I was gonna talk about a zombie movie, but yeah. Fuck me, I guess.
Time for 0 out of 10 nights. Fortunately, DoorDash knows all your neighborhood hotspots, so you can always get the best of what's around. We wish you the best of luck with that.
Infection resemble the effects of advanced neurotoxoplasmosis, a parasite known to manipulate behavior. Toxoplasma gondii, a parasite that commonly infects rodents, alters their brain chemistry to make them fearless in the presence of predators, increasing the likelihood of their consumption by cats, in which the parasite completes its reproductive cycle. Prone to fits of deep within their mind. The infected experience mild forgetfulness, brief moments of confusion, or sudden bursts of irrational behavior. They react with uncharacteristic irritability or misinterpret conversations, losing the ability to follow simple thoughts. By the time the infected themselves realize something is wrong, the disease has already rooted itself deep within their minds. It is no longer a question of if they will lose themselves, but when. As the infection progresses, the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for logic, reasoning, and impulse control, begins to degrade. This mirrors the symptoms seen in severe cases of syphilitic dementia, but unlike bacterial infections, which can be halted with antibiotics if caught early, the flare cannot. It is not a simple pathogen that can be eradicated. It is an adaptive force, one that has integrated itself too deeply into the neural pathways of its victims to be undone. In this later stage, the symptoms become more pronounced. Memory loss accelerates. Those afflicted forget where they are, fail to recognize familiar faces, or lose track of time entirely. Simple tasks become difficult, then impossible. Some recognize what is happening to them and struggle against it, fighting to hold on to their last remnants of sanity, clinging to memories before they are erased completely. Others descend into panic, into despair, lashing out as the walls of their own minds begin to crumble around them. Aggression soon follows. The infected become unpredictable, volatile, prone to fits of sudden, unprovoked violence. They lash out at friends, at strangers, at anyone who comes too close, their actions governed by impulses they no longer understand. The final stages of infection resemble the effects of advanced neurotoxoplasmosis, a parasitic disease known to manipulate behavior. Toxoplasma gondii, a parasite that commonly infects rodents, alters their brain chemistry to make them fearless in the presence of predators, increasing the likelihood of their consumption by cats, in which the parasite completes its reproductive cycle. The flare exhibits a similar form of behavioral manipulation. The infected do not merely lose control, they're compelled to spread the disease. What begins as angry outbursts soon escalates into something more terrifying, an insatiable need to destroy. Rationality disintegrates, and yet through it all, they remain aware, just enough to suffer. This is what makes the flare unlike any other disease before it. It forces its victims to endure their own decay, to witness the collapse of their identity, to feel themselves unravel piece by piece. What remained of civilization began referring to these infected as cranks, a term that did little to capture the sheer horror of what they'd become. Society began to fracture under the weight of its own fear. Towns and cities that had clung to a fragile semblance of order collapsed overnight, paranoia sweeping through the last bastions of humanity. Neighbors turned on each other. Families tore themselves apart. No one could be trusted. To show signs of the disease, no matter how minor, was to be marked for death. Vigilante executions became commonplace. There was no trial, no mercy, only swift, brutal eradication. But the executions came too late. The flare had already spread. The infected hunted in packs, moving together with a terrifying coordination, tearing through settlements and outposts with ruthless efficiency. These final stage cranks were unrecognizable from the people they had once been. The world had no way to fight them, and those who remained uninfected had only one choice: run. As a result, cities were abandoned, entire regions left to the cranks, vast wastelands of the lost and the damned. What remained were scattered enclaves, desperate communities clinging to whatever remnants of stability they could create. Some built walled settlements, fortresses of steel and concrete where entry was strictly controlled, where any signs of infection was met with immediate and unforgiving execution. Others became nomadic, moving constantly, never staying in one place long enough for the flare to reach them. There were also those who turned to violence, to raiding and conquest, believing that in the New World, survival belonged to those willing to take what they needed by force. What became clear was that the world they'd inherited no longer belonged to them. It belonged to the flare, to the sickness that had rewritten the rules of life itself. And the cranks, mindless, hungry, relentless, were its new rulers.
In spite of everything we've done to them, at least we gave them the tools they'll need to survive. Maybe they'll succeed where we failed.
YouTube Premium is ad-free YouTube and ad-free videos on the YouTube Kids app, so kids can bounce to Kids Bop without missing a beat.
Yeah, so that was it right there, though. I don't know, it looked cooler, but it was what it was, so it's the second part, I guess. Later on, I'll go through like movie reviews and shit. It's just that I was just trying to do